The chamber was a perfect circle, and it made Una Park feel very small. She stood in the center, on a platform of polished stone that felt cold even through her boots. All around her, in tiers that rose into a shadowy ceiling, were the members of the Galactic Council. They were not all physically there. Many were shimmering holograms, projections from star systems tens of thousands of light years away. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something else, a spicy alien scent she could not name. She wore a simple, dark gray suit. The humans had decided against military uniforms or fancy robes. They wanted to look like what they were, a people ready to work, to join, to contribute. Behind her, a large hologram displayed quiet scenes from Earth cities and forests. Children laughing, scientists in labs, artists at work. It was a plea made with images, because words felt so weak here. A being made of crystalline light, a Velosian, hovered closer. Its name was Alaris, and it was the appointed speaker for this session. For the last 3 Earth weeks, Una had listened to reports, analyses, and testimonies about humanity. Today was the final judgment. Delegate Una Park of Sol. Alaris's voice was not a sound, but a direct formation of words in her mind, smooth and emotionless. The Council has reviewed all pertinent data concerning your species' petition for full integration into the Galactic Accord. Una took a small breath, calming the flutter in her chest. We have, Speaker. We believe the evidence shows our capacity for growth, for peace, for stewardship. A low hum filled the chamber, a sound of many beings communicating on a frequency she could not hear. A hulking, reptilian delegate from the Garan hegemony shifted its weight. Its translated voice boomed. Growth, yes. Explosive, uncontrolled growth. In barely 10,000 of your years, you went from caves to cracking your own atom. Your history is a flat line, then a vertical spike. This is not stability. This is an anomaly. Another voice, soft and whispery from a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of silk, added, Your emotional spectrum is intense. You have created great beauty, yes. But for every moment of beauty, there is a corresponding moment of terrible violence. This internal conflict is written into your very biology. You are a species at war with itself. Una felt a familiar frustration. They saw the wars, but not the peace that followed. They saw the chaos, but not the order humans built from it. We have learned from our conflicts, she argued, keeping her voice steady. They have shaped our laws, our ethics, our desire for something better. Our last world-scale conflict was over a century ago. We have unified. Alaris pulsed with a soft, blue light. A century is less than a blink to this council. Your unification is new, fragile. It is built on the memory of conflict, not the foundation of innate harmony. The Velosian Concord, for example, has not known internal war in over 600,000 years. The hologram behind Una changed, showing human advances, the first stable fusion reactor, a colony on Mars, the deep space telescope that had first detected Council energy signatures. Look at what we have achieved in that blink, she said, passion creeping into her tone. We cured our worst diseases. We reversed environmental damage on our homeworld. We reached for the stars not with conquest in mind, but with curiosity. We saw your lights in the sky and wished to say hello. For you, curiosity is a flame that burns what it touches, said a mathematical collective known as the Syzygy. Its voice came from several points at once. You discover nuclear power, and you immediately build weapons. You discover genetics, and you immediately play at being gods. You discover primitive hyperdrive theory, and your military factions immediately draft plans for battleships. Your trajectory is predictable and dangerous. Una clenched her hands behind her back. They had seen the old, locked files, the theoretical designs drawn up in fear during first contact. They ignored the treaties that had been signed afterwards, the global dismantling of such projects. They were judging humans by their darkest hours, not their present day. The Galactic Accord is built on stability, Elaris stated, the finality in its mental voice making Yuna's heart sink. For millions of years, the member species have evolved slowly, predictably. We have cultivated a gentle, sustainable expansion. Your species, Homo sapiens, represents a temporal and cultural paradox. You are too fast, too hot, too loud. You are a spark in a room full of delicate clockwork. So what is your judgment? Yuna asked, her voice quieter now. The hope that had carried her here was beginning to drain away, replaced by a cold dread. The Council cannot risk integration, Ilaris said. The holograms of the alien delegates seem to lean in. Your potential for disruption is too high. You would introduce chaos variables we cannot calculate. You would bring your conflicts, your ambitions, your accelerating pace into a system that has taken eons to balance. Yuna looked from one alien face to another, the unreadable crystal. The scowling reptile, the gentle jellyfish, the geometric light of the syzygy. She saw no malice. That was the worst part. They looked at humanity with the cool, detached concern of a gardener looking at a fast-growing, unknown weed. They were not evil. They were afraid. Afraid of change, afraid of the unexpected, afraid of humanity. Will you destroy us? The question hung in the air. Not the Goron delegate let out a grunt that might have been a laugh. Destruction is also a chaotic variable. And wasteful. Elaris floated forward until it was just a few meters from Yuna. The Council has voted. Humanity will be preserved. But it will be removed. You are hereby banished from all Council-protected space and its adjacent stellar regions. To ensure the stability you lack, your entire species and your planetary body will be relocated. Yuna stared, uncomprehending. Relocated? Our planet? A hyperspace shunt of unprecedented scale has been prepared, Ilaris explained, as if discussing the moving of a small tree. It will translate your solar system, with Earth at its center, into a remote region known as the Stygian Reach. The Reach is vast, largely unexplored, and contains minimal resources required by standard Council technology. It is, by our definitions, a barren place. There you will pose no threat. You may continue your existence. The horror of it washed over Yuna. It was not death. It was something worse. It was erasure. It was being thrown into the attic of the galaxy and having the door locked. You're throwing us away, she whispered. You are being given the gift of continued existence, free from the temptations and pressures of a galaxy you're not ready for, Ilaris corrected. A chance to perhaps, in millions of years, evolve into something more suitable. There are billions of people on Earth, on our colonies. Yuna's composure broke. You can't just move us like a piece on a board. The shunt affects local spacetime. All life within the translated volume will be unharmed. The process is already beginning at the edges of your system. You will feel a tremor, then a jump, then silence. The platform beneath Yuna's feet vibrated. A deep, subsonic groan seemed to come from the fabric of reality itself. The hologram of Earth behind her flickered and died. The lights in the human embassy on the Council station, where her team waited, would be going out. All across human space, the hyperwave channels would be filling with static, then nothingness. The Velosians and the rest of the Council had already severed the connection. To them, humanity was already gone. Ilaris began to dim, its form pulling back into the higher tiers. Farewell, Yuna Park of Soul. May you find peace in the quiet dark. The alien delegates began to wink out, their holograms dissolving. The chamber emptied, leaving Yuna utterly alone on the cold stone. The vibration grew stronger. Through a vast observation window, she saw the stars outside stretch into lines of light, then snap into a new, unfamiliar pattern black, empty, punctuated by only a few faint, lonely stars. The judgment was complete. The sentence was being carried out. Banished not to a planet, but to a void. The message was clear. You are too problematic to live with, but we are too civilized to kill you. So you will be placed where you cannot possibly matter. Alone in the silent, abandoned council chamber, which was now nothing more than a piece of debris hurtling with Earth into the unknown, Una Park did not cry. She stood straight, looking at the strange new stars, a cold fire igniting in her gut. It was not the fire of war they feared. It was the fire of a stubborn, impossible will. They had looked at humanity and seen only a danger. They had not looked closely enough to see what happened when that danger was backed into a corner, with nothing left to lose and a universe of empty dark to fill. The quiet closed in around her, absolute and profound. It was the sound of the end of one story and the beginning of another. The silence was the first thing everyone noticed. It wasn't just quiet. It was a deep, hollow silence where the constant, subtle hum of galactic hyperwave traffic had been. One moment it was there, a background noise humanity had grown used to after first contact. The next, it was gone. The stars outside were wrong, too. They were fewer, dimmer, arranged in strange, lonely patterns. On what was now called Legacy Earth, panic was a global storm. Then, slowly, it turned into a desperate scramble. The planetary networks were flooded with one question. Asterisk, where are we? The best telescopes turned to the unfamiliar sky. Probes were launched to the edge of the translated solar system. The answers that came back were bleak. They were in a place the Council had called the Stygian Reach. The data painted a picture of a galactic backwater. The nearest star with a potentially habitable world was 20 light-years away, vast distance without the hyperspace lanes the Council had used. Most stars were old red dwarfs or unstable giants. The nebulae in the distance weren't the bright, nurturing stellar nurseries of home. They were dark, swirling clouds that emitted odd, disruptive radiation. The initial surveys found almost none of the heavy elements, the lithium-copper-barium chains, that standard human technology relied on. The Council had been telling the truth. By galactic standards, this place was a barren, resource-starved prison. Una Park was on the Emergency Ruling Council. Her face, once full of diplomatic hope, was now etched with grim determination. "We have two immediate problems," she said to the gathered leaders on a scratchy video feed. "Energy and materials. Our fusion reactors need specific isotopes. Our factories need specific metals. Our colony ships were built for a galaxy full of them. Out here, they are starving." A man named Min-Soo Kim was watching this broadcast from a cramped engineering lab on the lunar base. He was a propulsion specialist, a man who spoke more to machines than people. While the politicians talked, he was buried in the strange sensor data from the nebulae. The Council scans had dismissed them as high chaos, low yield zones. Useless. But Min-Soo saw something else. The chaotic radiation wasn't just random. It had a pattern, a violent, swirling rhythm. And it was interacting with the nebula's dust in a way that created bursts of exotic particles. He called his friend, a theoretical physicist named Hannah Lee. Her lab was a mess of equations on transparent boards. "The Council's physics is based on stability," Hannah said, her eyes wide with a crazy idea as she looked at Min-Soo's data. "Their entire technology requires calm, predictable energy states. This," she pointed to the wild particle readings, "is the opposite. It's pure chaos. To them, it's like trying to power a clock with an explosion." "But we can contain explosions," Min-Soo said quietly. We've been doing it since the first internal combustion engine. We don't need calm. We just need a way to channel the storm. That became the mantra. Channel the storm. While the governments on Earth tried to ration the last of their old resources, teams led by Minsu and Hana worked non-stop. They built a prototype chamber using the last of their lithium shielding. They designed a magnetic field that didn't try to calm the chaotic particles, but instead spun them faster, amplifying their wild energy in a controlled vortex. They called it the Chaos Klein reactor. The first test, in a heavily shielded lab on the moon, melted its containment after 4.2 seconds. But in those 4.2 seconds, it produced more power than the entire lunar base used in a day got. It was a spark of hope, but a fragile one. They needed structure. They needed ships that could withstand the chaotic energies and the emptiness of the Reach. On a survey mission to a frozen, metal-rich planet they named Niflheim, a geologist named Taeho Song found the answer. He was taking core samples when his drill bit broke. Not wore-down shattered. The rock it hit was a dull, grayish metal that Scanner said was low-grade iron. Puzzled, he took a sample back to his lander, and on a whim, subjected it to a low-level energy test from a standard plasma cutter. The metal didn't heat up. It absorbed the energy. Intrigued, Taeo increased the power. The metal began to shimmer, and its molecular structure, according to the scanners, became more ordered, denser, and harder. He was so excited he almost forgot to breathe. He exposed it to a trace of the chaotic radiation they had started collecting. The metal sang a clear, pure note and became harder than any known alloy. He named it Void Iron. He sent the data to Minsu. "It's a stone that becomes a diamond under pressure," Minsu said, a grin breaking through his exhaustion. "But the pressure is the chaos of this very place. The Council's materials science would never have found this. They would never think to stress a material with what they consider garbage energy. Now the pieces were coming together. The chaos reactor provided insane, almost limitless power. The void iron provided a structure that thrived on that power. Hannah Lee and her team turned to the biggest problem, travel. Without hyperspace lanes, they were trapped in their little pocket of stars. They worked backwards. Instead of trying to create a stable corridor through higher dimensions, the Council method, they used the chaos reactor to punch a temporary, unstable hole in spacetime right in front of a ship. The void iron hull, energized by the reactor, could withstand the violent passage. It was not elegant. It was not a smooth hyperspace jump. It was a brutal, short-range teleport they called a skip. The first unmanned probe skipped half a light year. It arrived with its sensors scrambled and its hull glowing, but it was there. Humanity could move. Meanwhile, another kind of architect was at work. A geneticist named Jiwan Yoon worked not with metal and energy, but with life itself. The few potentially habitable worlds they could now reach were harsh, toxic atmospheres, frozen soils, extreme temperatures. The old terraforming models would take centuries. Jiwan didn't have centuries. She took extremophile bacteria from Earth's deepest oceans and hottest vents and, using gene editing tools, made them even hardier. She created seeders, tiny, tough organisms designed to be dropped onto a dead world. They would eat the toxic soil, exhale simpler gases, and slowly, over just decades, prepare the ground for lichen, then plants. It was accelerated, forced evolution of a planet. Years turned into a generation. The panic was gone, replaced by a grim, unified purpose. Cities on Earth changed. New architecture used void iron, giving buildings a sleek, dark gray sheen. Ships, no longer designed to look like council vessels, were built, angular, functional, with massive chaos reactors at their core and hulls of layered void iron. They looked ominous. like shards of night. One day, Unipark, now old and her hair gone white, stood with Minsu, Hana, Taiho, and Jiwan at the launch of the first manned, long-range skipship, the Pathfinder. It was a somber ceremony. There were no grand speeches about galactic community. There was only a simple statement from the new leader, a woman named Seo Yoon. "The council gave us the dark," Seo Yoon said, her voice carried to every screen. "They thought it would be our end. They were wrong. The dark is just empty space, and we have learned how to fill empty spaces. Go, Pathfinder. See what is in our new home. There are no maps. You will make them." The Pathfinder ignited its reactor. Space around it warped, crackled with chaotic energy, and then it was gone. It didn't streak away. It vanished. In the control center, data trickled in. The ship was intact. It had skipped 10 light years. Minsu watched the data stream, remembering the cold, dismissive voice of the Velosian in the council chamber. He looked at his colleagues, the physicist, the geologist, the geneticist. They had not tried to become like the council. They had stopped looking for the resources the old galaxy used. They had looked at what was here, at the storm and the silence, and they had learned to use it. The shame of banishment was gone. In its place was something harder, quieter, and infinitely more powerful, a cold, steady confidence. They were not prisoners in the Stygian Reach. They were its students, and they were graduating. Generations are born, live, and die under the strange, quiet skies of the Stygian Reach. The shame and fear of the banishment fade into history, a foundational story told to children. Earth is no longer called Legacy Earth. It is New Gaia, the vibrant, green heart of a civilization that has learned to thrive in the dark. The human stellar concord is not an empire. It is a network, a web of thriving worlds connected by invisible threads of skips. The ships of the concord are things of silent, ominous beauty. Clad in void iron, they absorb light and sensor scans, appearing as moving patches of nothingness. Their chaos drives don't roar. They make a low hum that vibrates through the bones of their crews. They travel not on preset lanes, but on custom-forged paths, jumping from star to star in a zigzag pattern that would make no sense to a council navigator. They leave no energy signature, no hyperspace wake. To any old council sensor, they are ghosts. The society that builds them is quiet, focused, and deeply unified. The old nations of Earth are memories. People identify by their profession or their homeworld. A voidsmither from Nivellheim, a chaos theorist from New Gaia's Luna Academy, a sower from the verdant world of Haven. The principle that guides them is simple: prosper in silence. They build not for glory, but for survival. They expand not for conquest, but for room to breathe and grow. On New Gaia, in a calm garden of genetically perfected plants that glow with soft, internal light, an old woman named Hannah Lee walks with her great-granddaughter. Hannah's hands are wrinkled, but her eyes are still sharp. She points to the sky, where the Milky Way is a faint, distant smear. "They are out there," she says. "The ones who threw us away. They think we are dead, or frozen, or huddled in caves. Let them think that. Our silence is our shield." The granddaughter, a young engineer, nods. We watch them, though. The silent listeners hear their broadcasts. And they do. Deep in the asteroid belts of forgotten systems, the Concord maintains listening posts. They catch the faint, encrypted gossip of the Galactic Council. They hear tales of political squabbles, of gentle cultural exchanges, of a civilization that has been stable for so long it has grown slow, even bored. The Concord analyzes it all, but they do not answer. They listen and they learn. Their technology has grown in ways the Council could never imagine. On a planet they named Forge, Massive orbital smelters use focused chaos radiation to shape void iron into hulls for city ships. On a world of endless oceans called Mariana, they farm genetically engineered algae that produce complex proteins and polymers. Making scarcity a forgotten concept, the greatest work is done by the sowers, the disciples of Jiwan Yun's original vision. A sower named Kaido, grandson of the great geneticist, stands on the surface of a dead, rocky world designated RG-77. The air is thin and toxic. He releases a canister. It bursts, releasing a gray-green dust, the first stage cedars. In 50 years, he says to his team, this will have a breathable atmosphere. In 100, there will be forests. We are not just finding homes. We are building them. We are making the Reach bloom. But the Reach is not empty. The Council had written it off because they found no advanced life. The Concord, moving slowly and quietly, finds something else, remnants. They find the ruins of a species that died out when their star went cold. On a gas giant's moon, they discover a colony of silicon-based, slow-thinking crystal creatures that communicate with pulses of magnetic light. They are not technological, but they are intelligent. The Concord does not invade or uplift them. They study, they leave subtle monitoring satellites, and they move on, adding the data to their maps. They are the careful gardeners of the dark, tending to whatever life they find. The leadership of the Concord is held by marshals, chosen for their wisdom and resolve. The current Supreme Marshal is a woman named Seo Yoon. She is not a soldier by trade, but a former voidsmither and explorer. Her face is calm, her decisions measured. She sits in the council chamber of the Concord, a simple room on New Gaia with a large window showing the stars. Her advisors are with her. We have mapped 17% of the Stygian Reach, reports a cartographer. Our skip drive range improves every year. The Chaos Reactor Mark V is twice as efficient as the Mark IV. Population growth is stable across 12 core worlds, says another. The sower projects on 5 more planets are ahead of schedule. Seo Yoon listens, then asks the question they consider every day. And the Galactic Council? Any change? The head of the silent listeners, a man named June, shakes his head. No change. Their broadcasts are the same. Cultural festivals, minor trade disputes, philosophical debates. They recently celebrated 10,000 years of uninterrupted peace among their core members. They have not mentioned humanity in over a century. We are a forgotten lesson. A faint smile touches Seo Yoon's lips. It is not a happy smile. It is the smile of someone who holds a secret power. Good. Let us remain a forgotten lesson. Our power is not for them. It is for us. It is to ensure that no one, ever again, can decide our fate for us. Under her guidance, the Concord embarks on its most ambitious project, the Bastion. It is not a weapon, but a statement. They find a stable red dwarf star in a lonely part of the Reach. Using fleets of constructor ships, they begin to build a Dyson swarm, a vast collection of void iron, energy collectors that will encircle the star and capture all its power. For the Council, such a project would be a massive multi-species undertaking taking millennia. For the Concord, with their mastery of chaos energy and self-replicating builder drones, it is the work of a century. The power from the Bastion will fuel their civilization for eons. One day, a scout ship called the Whisper, on a routine mapping skip, finds something unexpected. A nebula with energy signatures that don't match any known chaos patterns. It is orderly, structured, and old. Captain Daeon Kim orders a cautious approach. Inside the nebula, they find not a natural formation, but a structure. A vast ancient archive, built by a race that died out before the Galactic Council was even a dream. Its technology is different from both the Council's and humanity's. It is based on quantum entanglement and solid light data storage. They carefully bring back a single data crystal. When it is activated, it doesn't give them schematics for weapons or drives. It gives them music and art and philosophies from a dead people who also love the stars. The Concord scientists are thrilled. It is pure knowledge, a gift from the void. Seo Yoon holds the crystal in her hand, watching the light play within it. "This is our purpose," she says to her council. "Not to hide forever, not to seek revenge, but to grow, to learn, to preserve. We are the children of the Reach now, and we are doing what the council, in all its stability, never could. We are listening to the whispers of the dark, and we are answering with light." The Concord continues its silent work. Their ships flit like shadows between the stars. Their worlds grow green and full of life. Their power grows. They are a civilization born from rejection, forged in exile, and now quietly, steadily, conquering the only thing that ever truly mattered, the future itself. They are no longer waiting for an invitation to the galaxy. They are building their own. For the Galactic Council, time moved with a gentle, predictable rhythm. Millennia passed like slow breaths. Then the Devourer swarm arrived. It did not send messages. It did not negotiate. It simply consumed. It began at the fringes, in the system of a minor species called the Lys. One moment, their green, watery world was there. The next, it was shrouded in a black, shifting cloud. When the cloud dissipated, the planet was gone. Not shattered, not scarred. Gone. Only a faint drift of metallic dust remained where a world had been. The swarm moved on, a wave of silent, absolute hunger. The Council's response was swift and orderly. They assembled their grand fleet, a stunning array of ships that glowed with clean energy, their weapons designed to disable and deter, not to obliterate. They met the swarm at the next system. They fired their harmonic disruptors, their stasis beams, their antimatter pulses. The beams of light that had enforced peace for ages lanced into the black cloud. The swarm absorbed the energy. It seemed to eat it. Then it changed. Where the Council weapons hit, the swarm extruded hardened, organic-looking spines of black metal and fired them back. The spines pierced the clean hulls of the Council ships, then dissolved into a billion nano-scavengers that ate the ships from the inside out. The Grand Fleet was reduced to floating scrap in less than an hour. The swarm grew larger. Panic, a feeling long forgotten, began to spread through the Council. They tried everything. Energy shields were drained and consumed. Kinetic projectiles were broken down and absorbed. They tried to reason, sending out communication drones with every known language of peace. The drones were swallowed without a response. The swarm was not an enemy. It was a force of nature, a perfect consumer of orderly matter and energy. And the Galactic Council was the most orderly collection of matter and energy in the galaxy. In a desperate council session. The air thick with fear, the Velosian High Speaker, a descendant of the one who had banished humanity, looked at the star maps. The swarm was a spreading blot of nothingness, moving toward the core worlds. "There is no strategy left," the speaker pulsed, its light dim with despair. "Our technology feeds it. Our order is its fuel. We are providing the meal for our own extinction." It was then that a scout ship, the Light of Velos, made a blind, desperate jump. Its captain, Kalen, ordered the hyperspace drive to push far beyond its safety limits, to flee in a random direction, away from the swarm's advance. The ship shuddered, its systems screaming in protest as it tore through the fabric of space. Alarms blared. When the shaking stopped, the Light of Velos was drifting in an unknown, star-sparse sector. Its drives were dead. Its sensors were damaged. They were lost. Captain Kalen looked at the unfamiliar constellations on his screen. "Scan for anything," he ordered, his voice tired. A planet, an asteroid, a debris field we can use for repairs. Anything. The sensor officer, her hands trembling, adjusted the broken equipment. I'm reading. Synthetic structures, Captain. Massive ones. On a planetary body, 3 light minutes away. And energy signatures. There. Strange, chaotic. Not like council power. Not like anything I've seen. A flicker of hope. A civilization? Can we hail them? Before they could try, space rippled in front of them. 3 ships simply appeared. There was no flash of light, no portal. One moment there was empty space. The next, 3 angular dark gray vessels were hovering around them. They were like shards of obsidian, absorbing the starlight. No weapon ports were visible. They emitted no energy signature his sensors could lock onto. They were silent and terrifying. A communication request appeared on Kalen's screen. It was not on a council channel. It was a raw, simple data packet. He opened it. A human face appeared on the screen. The face was stern, clean-shaven, with calm eyes. He wore a simple, dark uniform with no badges of rank Kalen recognized. Unidentified vessel, the man said in perfect, if slightly formal, council common. You have entered Concord-protected space. Your drive signature is inconsistent with local physics. Identify yourself and the nature of your emergency. Kalen was stunned. Concord? The word meant nothing. The species. He looked human, but that was impossible. Humans were gone. A sad footnote in history. I am Captain Kalen of the Velosian scout ship light of Velos. We are fleeing the Devourer swarm. We are damaged. We mean no harm. We did not know anyone was out here. The man on the screen studied him for a long moment. The Devourer swarm, explain. Kalen poured out the story, the consumption of worlds, the destruction of the Grand Fleet, the swarm's immunity to all council technology. As he spoke, he saw the man's eyes grow sharper, more focused, but showed no fear. When he finished, the man nodded. You will disable your remaining systems, including your passive sensors. A tractor beam will bring you to our orbital facility. Do not attempt to scan or transmit. Your crew will be treated with dignity, but you are now under the authority of the human Stellar Concord. Human. The word hit Kalen like a physical blow. He could only nod, his mind reeling. The dark ships moved closer. A gentle, unfamiliar force gripped the light of Velos and pulled it toward the planet. What he saw next erased any last doubt. The planet below was a paradise. Lush green continents, deep blue oceans, swirling with white clouds. Orbiting it were structures of breathtaking scale. Shipyards building more of the dark vessels, floating gardens. And a central space station that looked like a flower made of void iron. This was no struggling exile colony. This was the heart of a vibrant, advanced civilization. He and his crew were taken to a clean, simple room on the station. They were given food and water. The food was unfamiliar, but delicious. After a short time, the door opened. A woman entered. She was older, with streaks of gray in her hair, and she carried an air of absolute, quiet authority. Behind her was the man from the screen. I am Marshal Sioyun of the Human Stellar Concord, the woman said. Her voice was calm, but carried immense weight. This is Border Marshal Daeyeon Kim. Your story has been verified against our long-range observations. The Devourer swarm is a threat to all structured life. Kalen found his voice. You are humanity? The ones who were banished? We are, Sioyun said. The Council gave us the dark. We learned to see in it. But your technology, it is nothing like ours. It shouldn't be possible out here. Daeyeon Kim allowed a small smile. The Council's physics seeks order. Ours channels chaos. The swarm consumes order. It may find chaos indigestible. A wild, impossible hope began to bloom in Kellen's chest. You can fight it? You have weapons? We have solutions, Seo Yoon corrected gently. Your ship will be repaired. You will carry a message back to your Galactic Council. Back? The swarm is everywhere. The core worlds will fall in months. Seo Yoon turned to look out a viewing port at the thriving world below, then at the quiet, powerful ships docked nearby. The message is this: the children you cast out have been busy. We do not offer our help as subjects or as supplicants. We offer it as neighbors. The swarm is a problem of physics, and we have spent centuries learning a new kind of physics. She looked back at him, and in her eyes, Kalen saw no hatred, no gloating. He saw only a profound, steady certainty, as solid as the void iron surrounding them. Tell them humanity survived. Tell them we have built a home in the dark. And tell them we are coming to talk. The message from Captain Kalen, delivered through a repaired but ancient-looking Velosian scout ship, was met with disbelief, then shock, then a desperate, surging hope in the Galactic Council. Humanity lived. They had not just survived. They possessed technology that might counter the swarm. Pride was swallowed by necessity. An urgent, formal plea for aid was sent to the coordinates Kalen provided. No answer came. But 2 standard weeks later, at the edge of the embattled core system of Velos itself, where the Grand Fleet was making its last failing stand, space began to warp. It was not the smooth opening of a hyperspace lane. It was a violent, localized convulsion of reality. Space cracked like glass, and through the fractures they came. Ships of the human stellar concord slid into normal space. To the Council sensors, they were nightmares of quiet physics. They registered as negative images, absorbing scans and light. Their silhouettes were angular and sharp, like tools made for a brutal purpose. They did not form elegant battle lines. They moved in loose, shifting patterns that seemed chaotic but were perfectly coordinated. At the head of the formation was a single, larger vessel, its hull the color of a starless night. Inside the Council command ship, the sight caused a new kind of fear. They are. So dark, whispered a tactical officer. On the bridge of the lead Concord ship, the Steadfast, Marshal Seo Yoon watched the tactical display. The Devourer swarm was a rolling black wave of nothingness, consuming the graceful, glowing ships of the Velosian rearguard. She felt no pleasure, only a cold focus. Swarm analysis confirms Captain Kellen's data, reported Daeyeon Kim, now her second in command. It breaks down ordered matter and energy states for consumption. It is, in essence, the ultimate consumer of their technology. Then we will not feed it, Seo Yoon said calmly. Activate the Bastion protocols. Deploy the stabilizer fields. Let's see how it likes a taste of chaos. The Concord ships did not fire beams or missiles. Instead, they launched compact devices that looked like polished black stones. These stabilizers flew toward the advancing edge of the swarm. When they reached their positions, they activated DOT. There was no explosion. A deep subsonic thrum pulsed through space. The stabilizers emitted a field of pure, controlled chaotic energy, the same fundamental force that powered the chaos drives. It was not ordered light or coherent matter. It was the raw, churning potential of the Stygian reach. The effect on the swarm was immediate and catastrophic. The leading edge of the black cloud, which absorbed the Council's ordered energy weapons, seemed to recoil. The chaotic field did not give it stable energy to consume. Instead, it introduced instability into the swarm. The perfect, consuming structure of the swarm began to break down internally. Sections of it writhed, darkened further, and then simply dissolved into harmless inner dust. It was like hitting a virus with radiation. The swarm's own cohesion was its weakness. The Concorde ships advanced, a moving wall of silent, dark vessels sowing a wave of destabilization. They carved a path through the swarm, not by blowing it up, but by unraveling it. Where they passed, the all-consuming black cloud turned into a harmless grayish mist. The trapped, dying Velosian ships were suddenly free, floating in clear space, their crews staring in stunned silence at their impossible rescuers. The battle, if it could be called that, was over in hours. The core of the swarm, sensing an existential threat, tried to condense to form a massive, concentrated structure. Co Yoon gave one more order. The Steadfast and two other capital ships focused their main chaos reactors. A single targeted pulse of amplified chaotic energy, focused into a beam no wider than a tree trunk, lanced into the swarm's heart. There was a flash of impossible colors, purples, blacks, and searing whites, and then the central mass of the devourer swarm ceased to be. The silence that followed was profound. The velvet black of space was clear. The surviving council ships, scarred and broken, floated amidst the dissipating dust of their annihilator. A communication request came through on all council channels. It was not a request from a military commander, but from the leader of a civilization. Co Yoon's face appeared on every screen in the fleet, on every world watching in terror. "The immediate threat is neutralized," she said, her voice even. "We will dispatch recovery teams to assist with wounded and drifting vessels. We request that the ruling body of the Galactic Council meet with us. The location is the former site of the Banishment Tribunal. We will be there in 72 hours. There was no room for negotiation. It was a statement dot when the time came. The chamber was full again. But everything was different. The Velosian High Speaker, the Goran delegate, the Syzygy Collective, they all waited. Their pride gone, replaced by a weary awe and a deep, humbling fear. Space outside the great viewport rippled, and a single Concorde ship, the Steadfast, appeared. It did not dock. A shuttle, sleek and dark, detached and flew into the main hangar. A ramp extended. Marshal Seo Yoon walked down it, followed by a small delegation, including Daeyeon Kim and Hana Lee's great-granddaughter, now a leading chaos theorist. They wore simple, dark Concorde uniforms. They carried no visible weapons. Their authority came from the silent ship hovering outside, and from the knowledge in their eyes. Seo Yoon walked to the center of the chamber, to the very spot where Yuna Park had stood generations before. She looked at the gathered aliens, meeting each of their gazes. "You banished us here," she began, her voice echoing softly. "You called us a spark in your clockwork. You were right. We were a spark. But you threw that spark into a room full of tinder." She paused, letting the words hang. "We did not die. We burned. And in burning, we learned to forge a new kind of metal. We learned to see in the dark you gave us." The Velosian High Speaker pulsed with a dim, ashamed light. We judged incorrectly. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Name your price, resources, territory, a seat on the High Council." Seo Yoon raised a hand, stopping him. "We do not want your seat. We do not want your territory. Your resources are meaningless to us." She gestured to her colleagues. "Our physics are different now. Our needs are different. We built a civilization without you." The chamber was silent, confused. "Then what do you want?" asked the Goran delegate, its voice rough. "We want you to understand what you did," Seo Yoon said. "You did not punish us. You released us. You forced us to become something stronger, something that does not need your permission to exist." She took a step forward. "So here is what will happen. The Galactic Council, as an authority that dictates the fate of others, is dissolved. Its time is over. A ripple of shock went through the assembly. In its place, she continued, we propose the silent accord. We will share the principles of chaos-Klein physics and void iron synthesis. Not as masters, but as equals. Any species may learn, may build, may explore. There will be no more gatekeepers. No more banishments. The stars are not a club to be managed. They are a frontier to be met. She looked at the stars outside, then back at them. We are not conquering you. We are offering you an upgrade. You can cling to your old ordered ways and hope the next devourer swarm doesn't come. Or you can learn to channel the storm. The choice is yours. But understand this, humanity is no longer knocking on your door, asking to be let in. We have our own house now. We are just here to open the windows. She turned and walked back toward her shuttle, her delegation following. At the ramp, she stopped and looked back one last time. The silent gates are open. Walk through them or don't. But do not ever again think you have the right to tell someone else they do not belong among the stars. The shuttle door closed. The dark ship outside vanished without a trace, leaving the council chamber in a silence louder than any explosion. The old galaxy was gone. A new one had just announced its presence, not with a roar of conquest, but with the quiet, undeniable sound of a door being left open.